Hello, you're listening to Hugo Talks. I see the World Economic Forum and Klaus Schwab and his Great Reset have got a bit of a shindig going on called the Davos Agenda. It's been going on all week, and he's got Greta Thunberg, Angela Merkel, the President of the European Commission, the Secretary General of the United Nations. He's been on there, loads of these powerful people saying what needs to be done, and strangely enough, there really is little said about it in the mainstream media, and they are doubling down on their agendas by the look of it. When you look through all the videos on the World Economic Forum, it really is all focused basically on climate change, and there seems to me that they and these leaders are trying to conflate the whole virus situation with climate change. So I'd imagine the idea is that if you have a brain of cheese and accept the health passport, then the virus crisis will mutate into a climate change crisis in the future, and not only will it be used to show if you are immune, but will also start measuring your carbon footprint and how far you can travel, etc, etc. The possibilities are limitless. Anyhow, let's have a look at this interview, or what they call a special address, with President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen.
Madam President, dear participants, it's such a great pleasure to see you again. When we met last year, Dr. von der Leyen, it was in Davos, and we celebrated. You actually opened our 50th anniversary meeting, and the world looked more or less quite in balance or in order. What year, and particularly what year for you, and as a European, I have to say I'm proud that Europe is back under your leadership.
So let's just clarify, who is this person, Ursula von der Leyen, who is the leader of all of Europe, as Klaus has just said? She used to be a German politician and was proposed by the European Council and then voted in by EU officials. She got voted in to become the leader of Europe with 383 votes from the EU elite. She wasn't voted for by the public. I mean, if she was, there's 447 million people in the EU, but only 383 voted for her to be the leader of Europe. That doesn't sound like democracy to me.
You had to meet so many challenges, short term, like managing the Brexit, fighting the virus. But at the same time, you could also achieve success and advancement in building the Europe of the future, which means a Europe which is greener, a Europe which is smarter. And I could mention many, many other initiatives which you have undertaken, gender parity, biodiversity, and so on and so on. So what is important is to have your voice now at this critical moment, because everybody would agree that we have a short window at the beginning of this year to really restore trust, and you are in the center of many activities which will be decisive whether humankind can re-establish trust into our future.
Into our future? I don't know, Klaus. I think if you want to establish trust, then maybe you should have leaders of Europe who are elected by the people of Europe, as opposed to 383 people. And who is our future when you say ours? I'm getting the impression you're not talking about those 447 million people in the EU. You're just talking about yourselves and your close circle of rich friends.
So, Madam President, we look forward to what you have to share with us, and maybe we have time for one or two questions. I'm pleased to invite the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, to take the floor.
Thank you very much, dear Klaus.
Dear Klaus? Ooh, that's very affectionate. He's the lovable, wise old uncle for all of the unelected rulers of the world.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for inviting me again. And indeed, it's worth looking back. When I was with you in Davos a year ago, Donald Trump's visit was at the center of attention. And we were worried about the stability of our global alliances.
So she gets into a bit of Trump bashing, and then we have a bit of waffle and...
Today, a year later, we are worrying about whether democracy itself might have been permanently damaged in the last 4 years.
Okay, she's worried that democracy has been damaged over the last 4 years. This is coming from the leader of Europe, who nobody in Europe voted for to be in that position of leader. And she's lecturing us on how democracy is damaged, just in case, Ursula, if you don't understand, democracy is a system of government by the whole population. Now, 447 million in the EU didn't vote for you to be leader of the EU. Only 383 people did. Democracy? Pfft.
And images like we saw a few weeks ago when an angry mob stormed the Capitol were beyond my imagination. And yet, the dangers that social media poses to our democracy.
So here we go, social media is a danger to our democracy, our democracy. When they say our, who are they speaking for? Is she speaking for just the 383 people who voted for her to be the leader of Europe? Or is she speaking for the 447 million people in the EU? I'll let you work that one out.
Were also already discussed in Davos. I remember...
So she then talks about the big tech companies and how they need to be made accountable. But what this really means is that they will give them a license to end any kind of speech that doesn't agree with these leaders and the super rich elite. And that will be done in the form of protection and regulation, which will close down things like this channel, for instance. Hence one of the reasons why I'm setting up camp elsewhere on the internet, like my website, Telegram. Oh, and I've just opened up a Gab account if you want to follow me on there.
Ladies and gentlemen, there is no better place than the World Economic Forum to find out about the major trends in our society, or to be updated on what is keeping up at night entrepreneurs and philanthropists, or managers and the NGO community. To see how policymakers look at the future. But sometimes you just have to listen carefully.
Yes, all you numpties out there who are not business leaders, philanthropists, NGO community and policymakers, you make sure to just listen carefully. That's an order.
And this year, the World Economic Forum is once again asking the right questions with your initiative, Klaus. The Great Reset.
There you go, the Great Reset. But it's a conspiracy theory, didn't you know?
We must learn from this crisis. We have to change the way we live and do business to be able to keep what we value and hold dear.
But isn't part of the Great Reset's plan to own nothing and be happy? How can I hold what I value dear if I have nothing?
If temperatures keep rising and nature keeps disappearing.
So here we go now. You see, the Great Reset was created in order, as Klaus has admitted, to exploit the virus situation to bring in all of these changes. And now it's as if they want to swap that crisis for a climate change crisis. And then we get about, 15 minutes flat of climate change talk. Not much talk about pandemics, lockdowns, and countries facing financial collapse. Not much talk about that at all. It's as if they don't seem too bothered about countries and their massive economic problems. And that's a bit weird, especially as this is the World Economic Forum. It seems like it's more about climate change. Maybe they should change their name to the World Climate Change Forum.
So take the vaccine that will hopefully protect us all from COVID-19. What normally takes 5 to 10 years.
So then we get onto the jab and how everyone should pull together, etc.
Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Ursula. Europe, as you tell us and as we see, is really taking the lead in the Great Reset effort which we need.
So there you go again, Great Reset. And you notice Klaus uses the word we. We need it. Who is this we he keeps talking about? Now Klaus, a bit like Ursula, he hasn't been voted into this position of power by the public. He has not been elected, and yet he uses the word we. Who is this we that he speaks of?
Is really taking the lead in the great reset effort which we need in order to shape our future in a more resilient, in a more inclusive, and in a more sustainable way. I think we all were impressed because it was news for me to hear what you are doing to prepare for the next virus.
Another virus? The next virus?
For the next virus, which certainly will hunt us.
What did he say then?
For the next virus, which certainly will hunt us.
I don't know. Hunt us? Haunt us? Jury's out on that one.
If we are not sufficiently prepared for it. And also what Europe is doing in terms of the distribution of vaccines. I just want to quote yesterday Secretary General Antonio Guterres, who said, as long as not everybody is vaccinated, nobody will feel safe.
So there's Klaus quoting the Secretary General of the United Nations. As long as not everybody gets the jab, nobody will feel safe. So obviously, Klaus wants everybody to get the jab, even though the jab has been stated by the pharmaceutical companies, the makers, that it doesn't stop you getting it, it doesn't stop you transmitting it, and they are still not clear on how effective it is. That's still up in the air. Yet here we have Klaus, an unelected person, saying how everyone in the world should get the jab, quoting the United Nations General Secretary, another person holding a position of power who was not elected by the public, who says everyone should get the jab, whilst interviewing the leader of Europe, who also was not elected by the public. And these people talk to each other about how they are afraid that democracy is falling apart. Are you having a laugh? It seems to me that these people are speaking not for you and me, they are speaking for themselves and the 1% richest people in the world. That's who they are talking about when they say we. And that explains why this is not featured in the tabloids or in the mainstream media very much. Because it's not for the stupid 99% of the world. It's for that small 1% of the richest people in the world. All right, that's enough of that. As always, thanks for listening. YouTube is not a very secure place for this channel, and I think it could possibly disappear overnight. So if you want to keep up to date, follow me on the links in the description and on comments pinned to the top. Preferably, subscribe to my website at hugotalks.com, as that's the one I have most control over. See you later.